Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pashatai Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gotuse Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Go Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakta Bhavati Nashtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Mukute. Hare Krishna. So we welcome everyone for today morning discussion as part of our Bhagavat Life program, wherein we have been discussing the summary study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have covered up to now third canto, chapter number 21. So we're going to start with, not in fact 22nd, we covered half of the chapter. It was a very important subject matter, very, very profound purpose. So I'll just give a quick highlight of what we discussed, some of the points. So chapter number 22nd of third canto begins with Swayambhuva Manu expressing his gratitude and good fortune for having the opportunity to meet Kardama Muni. So in the initial set of verses, Srila Prabhupada writes about that how only when a good fortune arises in one's life that he gets to meet a bona fide guru, or else a good fortune arises only if somebody meets a bona fide guru. Like that, there was a whole discussion how to approach a bona fide spiritual master, etc. That discussion was, or that was described in that. That was the first series of verses like that. After that, because in the previous chapter, in the end of the previous chapter, Kadama Muni, after glorifying the king, had asked, what is the purpose of your coming here to our ashram? So now, after expressing his gratitude and opportunity to meet with a great personality like Kadam Muni, then Swayambhu Manu expresses his desire, and he says, "My desire is to have my daughter Devhuti get married to you." So that was the discussion. Then discussion comes, how did this whole thing begin? And we read about how Narad Muni had spoken about Kadama Muni to Devhuti. And once Devhuti heard about Kadama Muni's character and personality, she fixated her mind on Kadama Muni. And there are many interesting things which were mentioned by Prabhupada. Woman's psychology was described. Prabhupada said, if a woman gives her heart to somebody, first love, I'm speaking in context of the today's environment, because earlier there was no second love, there was only first love. But these days there are multiple loves or lovers. Eventually, by the time somebody may get married or something, has become a trend. But it's very difficult for a lady to forget her first love or to whom she loves actually. And I believe, would have discussed the example of Draupadi, how Mahabharata describes. It was an unheard in the history until that point of time that a woman would have 5 husbands. Why was it where polygamy was allowed? The reason is, for a woman to really, change her or, give a space to somebody else was not considered easy. So therefore, for 6 months or whatever duration Draupadi would be with her husband, and when she would have to be with another brother or husband, then she would spend almost 6 months in meditation and purifying her consciousness, so that she could maintain the chastity of relationship when she's spending time with another husband. Like that was a discussion, we talked about it. Then it was also mentioned how Swayambhu Manu, when he offered the proposal to Kadamamuni to accept his daughter in marriage, and when Kadamamuni glorified Devhuti, glorified Swayambhu Manu, and then he accepted, he said, "Well, all of us know how chaste and wonderful your daughter is." And then he quoted example of the what do you call as Gandharva Vishwasu, who saw the beauty of Devhuti and crashed from the plane onto the ground. So he said, "Yes, I accept." And there were certain things were mentioned. If the anyways, I don't get into that subject matter. But like that, there were certain things were mentioned, and then comes very important point where Swayambhu Manu says, "I am now relieved from my anxiety because you have accepted my daughter in marriage." So Prabhupada, it's very beautiful purpose how marriage system was planned, how marriages would happen in the past. It was anxiety for the parents. Now today, it's not the anxiety for the parents, it's anxiety of the son and daughter. Yes or no? They are worried, when will I get married? Would I ever get married? Yes. But you go back in your family or maybe grandparents, how they would become or how they would be in anxiety the moment the son or the daughter would hit teenage years. In fact, in your case only, how many of times your relatives would have come and said, "अरे इंजीनियरिंग में एडमिशन हो गया है, रिश्ता ढूंढना शुरू कर दो, इंजीनियरिंग कंप्लीट हो गई है, अब तो पक्का कर दो, अभी तो जॉब शुरू हो गई, छोड़ना नहीं." How many of you heard those discussions? Particularly if there is a marriage going on in the family. So interestingly, our family culture, on the day of marriage, nobody talks about the couple who's getting married. You have noticed? All the family members will come and they will focus on who are the bachelors here. They should also get settled now. They should also get settled. How many have seen this? I remember when my eldest sister got married. I was in 9th standard, for God's sake. I've not even finished my senior secondary education. My mama, mommy, everyone, oh, bada ho gaya, bada ho gaya. What are you talking about? Bada ho gaya, 9th standard. So anyways, so here it mentions someone who said, "Okay, now I have done my part, and thank you for, accepting this." So Prabhupada mentions about the beautiful point, how Kanyadan is considered to be one of the very auspicious, necessary charity which a parent should be doing. Like that was mentioned. And then also things were mentioned about Kadama Muni. Why Kadama Muni was qualified to be, to take up the responsibility of marriage institution. Prabhupada is very beautiful point. Kadama Muni was the best match for Devhuti because he had lived as a perfect brahmachari. So according to Varnashrama system, first 25 years brahmachari life, after that you can take to Grihastha ashram. Prabhupada said because he had lived as a brahmachari, he had learned the art of controlling his senses, he had purified his heart. Now he can get into the married ashram or grahastha ashram and can live according to the rules and regulations of grahastha ashram. And if you see, let's say prachetas, you take an example of anyone. We read in Srimad Bhagavatam, before marriage, can you imagine Daksha? We read in the 6th canto. Daksha first begot 10,000 sons. He sent them to the forest to perform penance. For what? To get married after all and beget. Yes? The idea was them to go to the forest, purify their consciousness, get married, and then help in begetting and increasing the population. Narad Muni came to call that 10,000 to Brahmacharya Ashram. Now 10,000 kids. Is it easy to produce, first of all? Now, what was the end goal Daksha wanted? He wanted progeny. Now he knows if I've already sent my 10,000 kids and this Narad Muni have taken them, made them brahmacharis. Now imagine, hypothetically put yourself into the situation. Would you risk another batch? If I call it batch because there are too many. Would you risk another batch of your kids and ask them to go to the forest, the same forest where the previous batch went, go to the same forest and perform austerity? But he did it. Why? Because you really cannot live as a grahastha, you really cannot get into marriage life unless you perform and purified your consciousness. He's still sent to the same place, go and perform austerities and purify your consciousness. Isn't that amazing? So I don't know what austerities our youth for today present, does it. I have no idea. Thank God I didn't get into that ashram, so I didn't have to think much about it. But those of you who are eagerly awaiting for that ashram should ask, what is that austerity? Anyways, that was a point which was mentioned here, like this. And after giving her daughter, or his daughter in marriage to Kadama Muni, the wife of Swayambhu Manu, Satrupa, gave a lot of dowry. Then there was a discussion about dowry also in this chapter. Papa said dowry was, and if you see historically, certain words over a period of time take a negative connotation. Originally, they didn't had a negative meaning. How many of you, when you hear the word dowry, immediately think negative? Bad, right? But originally it was not negative. The word dowry, of course, there was no English in those days. But what it means, what you call I know Dahej is Hindi or Muslim word, or whatever that is. So what it meant by the parents, because of their deep love for the daughter, for her comfort and convenience, by their own goodwill, they would give. So earlier culture was the parents at the time of the marriage only would part away with their wealth and will give it to the daughter. And then everything else will belong to the son. There was nothing that you file a court case later on and the brothers and sisters are fighting with each other and women have 50% right in the parents' wealth. Isn't it they are now extorting money from their parents? Sorry to say that, I don't mean that way. But I mean to say, you say abolish dowry. Don't give dowry at the time of marriage. But after the disappearance of the parents, then sometimes the same people come back and then say, I also have a 50% right because I'm also a woman, I'm equal to man, I should also have it. What's the difference? In fact, it should be ideal, it should be, as our system Vedic culture says, the parents, they out of their own sweet will, they give it. If they give it, would that help in relationship? Or if you ask them and force them to give? That was not the culture. So they, on the pretext of trying to abolish dowry system, what happens today? On the man and equal right, they say, the woman should have. Of course, and you see in our culture, I'm talking culturally, okay? Somebody wants to have something to say, we can take on it. If you see culturally, parents would continue to give, apart from dowry also, will continue to give to the girl's family. Let's say the girls have a child. How much the parents will do then, isn't it? So it's a continuous. But eventually, when they disappear, parents disappear, for who all would inherit everything? That will go to the son. That was a culture. But somehow down there, I mean to say, there was a predefined rules and regulations. There was a culture, so nobody had to go to the court and then create a ruckus between the relationship. And now today, brothers and sisters fight over the wealth. because something what was to be done before wasn't happen. So, but Vedic culture was pretty nicely designed. That was a thing mentioned about dowry. And after that, Swayambhuva Manu and Shatrupa returned back to their kingdom, Brahismati. And what did they do at Brahismati is described in 31st verse onward. So we'll read from verse number 31 and onwards. All right. Hare Krishna. So third canto, 22nd chapter, verse number 31. Let's take a look at it. So not 31, we'll begin with verse number 30. So it is mentioned, Brahismati Namapuri Sarva Sampat Samanvitaha Neptam Yatra Romani Yagna Syangam Vidunvataha. So what happens here? Let me tell you, can show chat. We are able to show verses. And if you wish, you can show the same thing online also. So the city of Brahismati was very, very opulent. And the city of Brahismati was entirely free from the, this Adhyatmika, Adhibhautika, and Adhidaivika Klesha. Why? Because the hair from the body of Varahadev had fallen onto that land, which had turned into a kusha grass. Because of this, this Brahismati was very, very opulent. Reading the translation, the city of Brahismati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he appeared as Varahadev. As he shook his body, what happened? क्या चल रहा है? मतलब यहाँ क्यों वो दिखा नहीं रहे हैं? क्यों नहीं दिखा रहे? तो पूछ रहा हूँ कहाँ ढूंढ रहा हूँ? मैं सामने तो बैठा हूँ. Third canto, 22nd chapter. I repeat again, 29th verse. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifice. Like this. So that was text number 30. 31 talks about Manu spread a seat of kushas and kashas. Are we sharing online also? Hare Krishna. All right, share screen to enable kar do, Prabhu, so they can share. Manu spread a seat of kushas and kashas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead, by whose grace he had obtained the rule of terrestrial globe. So now onward, there are some very interesting verses in the context of Grihastha life. It's better for Grihastha Council to really take up this discussion here, but we'll read it. Something very interesting mentioned. Text number 32, a simple thing. Having entered the city of Brahismati in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. All right. Now comes text number 33. 33 to 37. Very, very important verses. Sabharyas prajaha kama bhuvuje anya virodataha sangyamana satkirtihi sastribhi suragayake prati usheshu anubadhena hridashanvan hare kataha. So, unable to share screen. Yes, Mother, you can share screen now. This is third canto, 22nd chapter, verse number 33. You're not able to share screen, you're able to show? Fine. If you don't pay attention, the online devotees will not understand what's going on. All right, reading this. So, yeah, from this set of verses, it is mentioned how Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed his life. Enjoyed his life not only as a practicing devotee, but he enjoyed his life as a king also. So, question comes, after coming Krishna consciousness, is that something that enjoyment word becomes a taboo? Oh, enjoyment? Oh, you cannot be really enjoying life. You should be grave. You should, we create certain definitions about it. Now you see what mentions in this set of verses and purports. Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed life. Now you know who are the 12 Mahajans? Does Manu comes in Mahajans? Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed life. Are yaar, he can enjoy life. Why can't we enjoy life? Now there's an interesting way. Take a look at it. Enjoyed life with his wife and subjects and fulfilled his desires without being disturbed by unwanted principles contrary to the process of religion. Which means he lived his life to his fullest extent, but never got disturbed by unwanted desires, which were contrary to the established principles, which means he didn't broke any rules and regulations because he adhered to the Vedic teachings. He was content with that, therefore he could enjoy his life. Celestial musicians and their wives sang in chorus about the pure reputation of the emperor. And early in the morning, every day, he used to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a loving heart. In other words, when you read this section, it becomes very, very clear. Actual enjoyment of the life is being in God consciousness or being Krishna conscious. Every morning for him, the day will start with hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, hearing the glories. You read that famous shloka, 17th chapter, verse number 16. What is austerity of mind that was talks about? It says self-control, purification, and finding that gravity. If in case we distract our mind with sinful thoughts, or if we allow sinful thoughts to flourish in our consciousness, then it destroys the well-being quotient of our life. Here, Swayambhuva Manu is living a full life. He has his wife, he has his subjects, taking care of his praja, and he's able to fulfill all his desires. Yet, while he's doing so, he's also able to be Krishna conscious, like this. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he enjoyed with his wife and citizens without contradicting the dharma of others. While his glories were sung by Gandharvas with their wives, starting in the morning, he would listen with attention to stories of the Lord, like this. So that's the point here. So Prabhupada writes, early in the morning and all that, this system is still prevalent to royal families, etc. I'll have to take a look at my purport, my book. I would have made notes here. Which verse we are reading? 33. I'll read out from my book here. From the first paragraph, you will not find it, you can no need to show it. In the first paragraph, the Vedic principles are designed in such a way that the conditioned souls who have come to this material world may be guided in fulfilling their material desires and at the same time be liberated and go back to God and back home. It's a very, very important point. The Vedic principles are designed in such a way, they don't deprive us from anything. In fact, they're designed in such a way that allows us to fulfill our desires in a regulated manner and simultaneously allows us to go back home, back to Godhead. Now, how many of you would acknowledge and agree, regardless of whoever we are, we all need some kind of rules and regulations? Yes or no? Why? What is the need for rules and regulation? Even if you're 40-year-old man, 50-year-old man, but rules and regulations are needed. Why rules and regulations are needed? It's just the nature of the mind to get distracted, get carried away. I often give an example of, imagine you're playing a football. You started playing a football with a clear understanding that you have to hit the ball into the goalpost. But imagine if there is no boundary to your football ground. How many of you agree after 20 minutes of your game, even goalpost will not be visible? Raise your hand. Yes or no? Now somebody will say, "Arey, boundary karke tumne humko limit kar diya hai. Why have you limited me with this boundary? Set us free. Give us freedom. Let us play how you want to play." Okay, you play if you want that freedom. But the purpose for which you're playing, you will not get the joy in playing a football by just hitting ball from here to there. What is the most joyous movement in the football? Goal. But you will not get a chance to put the ball into the goal because goal post is not there. You getting it? So similarly, the boundary act as a regulation which restrict us, and in that way we get to enjoy life because that keeps us focused. That's the point mentioned here. Swayambhuva Manu in the next paragraph used to avail himself of this opportunity, which means hearing of the Lord's glories, to live household life in the peace and prosperity of Krishna conscious atmosphere. That is what called as the ashrama. Prabhupada then talks about Jaipur royal family. We have this Radha Govind temple, which is right behind the Jaipur palace. And Prabhupada mentions how every morning the king and the queen will go to the temple, attend the whole arti. And even up to today, we went to Jaipur, you remember? Every morning, hundreds and thousands of people gather for the morning darshan. Such a beautiful sight it is. Hare Krishna. So like that. Let's go to the next verse. Text number 34. Then it is mentioned, thus Swayambhuva Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life, for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna consciousness. So although he was enjoying his life, but he did not degrade himself. Prabhupada writes in the very beginning of the purport, the kingly happiness of material enjoyment generally drags one to the lowest grade of life, namely degradation to animal life because of unrestricted sense enjoyment. But Swayambhuva Manu is considered as Raja Rishi. So Prabhupada says in the purport later, the case is similar with the conditioned souls in general. They have come into this material life for sense gratification, but if they are able to create a Krishna conscious atmosphere as depicted in Swayambhuva Manu's life by temple worship and household deity worship, then in spite of their material enjoyment, they can make advancement in pure Krishna consciousness without a doubt. And then comes a classic line at the end of the purport. It's the fifth last line. Krishna consciousness does not stop them in their propensity for material enjoyment. Sometimes it looks like enjoyment is a taboo word. Do you feel like that? Enjoyment? No. Krishna consciousness does not stop, but simply regulates their habits in the life of sense enjoyment. So, devotees should be enjoying or should be miserable? But in a regulated manner. So, whatever you want to do by 10 o'clock, we should sleep. So that we can have the full morning program. And rest of the day is yours. Who's disturbing? That's a point like this. We can do that. In spite of their enjoying the material advantages, just like king have advantage, he has his own praja and whatnot. They can be liberated in this very life by practicing Krishna consciousness by the simple method of chanting the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Like that, further it is mentioned, so Swayambhuva Manu continued to live a long, long life, but because he was remembering Krishna every day, his long life was not in vain. Text number 36, consciousness. Because Manvantara, which means there are, there are 14 Manus in a day of Brahma, and there is how many, what's the duration of one Manu? How many Manu cycle? In one day of Brahma, which is correct, there are 14 Manus, which means 1000 Yuga cycles divided by 14 will give you around 71 or 72. So Manu had such a long life. So what is mentioned here is, despite that long life, he didn't wasted it because he always served Krishna. Saevam swantaram ninye. Text number 36. Yuganam eka saptatim. Hey, wait a second. I can only share now because I'm showing the verses from here. Mother Medhavni, allow me to share. I'll share it because I'm using it also. Correct. I forgot. I was not planning to do this, but I'm doing it. Okay. So I'll read it from here. Vasudeva prasangena paribhuta gatitreha. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 yugas, always thinking of Vasudev, always engaged in matters regarding Vasudev. Thus he transcended 3 destinations like that. And then text number 37 says, one who lives the life in such a way will never be afflicted by any kind of miseries. Very interesting verse. Sharira manasa divya Vaiyase ye cha manushaha bhautikascha katam klesha badante hari samshrayam. So, O Vidura, those who are always engaged in devotional service of the Lord, they cannot be put into miseries. What miseries? Pertaining to Sharira, pertaining to the mind, pertaining to the nature, other man and living creatures. Again, it is Adibhatika, Adidatmika, Adidevika, Klesha. Those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness, remembering the Lord, they are not disturbed or perturbed by such things. Like this, the chapter ends, where in the end, it is mentioned by the speaker that I have described enough about Swayambhu Manu. Let's talk about Devhuti and her glories. And with that begins the next chapter, chapter number 23. Chapter number 23, Devhuti's lamentation. So let me give a little brief here. It's a big chapter. We might have to do in two parts. It has 57 verses. It begins with Devhuti's service. Now the focus have changed from Swayambhu Manu and Satrupa. Focus comes back to the bank of Saraswati, where Kadumuni's ashram was there. At that place, now how Devhuti is living her life. That is a discussion. Devhuti, who was the daughter of the king of the whole world, what would she do in a hermitage? How would she live in a hermitage? Was she throwing tantrums? Or was she cooperating? It's a big difference, you know. If she had been a daughter of a Brahmana coming from that simple background who would have lived begging alms, then it's okay for her to adjust. This example, what is being mentioned now, is how Devhuti served Kadamamuni is generally discussed in the context of how a disciple should serve spiritual master, where Devhuti sets a perfect example of an ideal disciple. Is just too amazing. She transcends the barrier of her psychophysical nature. You understand that? If you have been grown up and raised in an environment where you have been pampered from your childhood, at the blink of your, or not the blink of this, at the snap of your finger, there will be hundreds of maid servants will be running around to fulfill your desire. I mean, is there anything that the king's daughter would not get in her life? Would she ever have to work for anything in her life? Otherwise, what's the meaning of being king's daughter? Would she have hundreds of servants? And would there be anyone to instruct her what to do? Would Swayambhu Manu telling, आज तो मैं देवहूति के हाथ का ही चाय पीऊंगा? I'm just joking, चाय नहीं हुआ करती थी उस समय. And the point of making it, I mean, he would not, because Swayambhu Manu would have his own host of servants. Now, being grown up in an environment where you have been a controller, where you have been an organizer, where you have been a king, now you come to a setup where you have to follow the orders. No question asked. You have to only serve. It's a very, very amazing. So let's take a look. So that's how the discussion begins about Devhuti's ability to transcend her psychophysical nature and serving Kadama Muni with all purity. So much so, Kadama Muni, in the previous chapter which we just concluded, described or glorified the beauty of Devhuti. And after serving Kadama Muni, Devhuti lost all her beauty. She became weak, frail, thin, lost all her luster. It's an incredible first initial 8 verses, and not even once she said anything to Kadama Muni. And one day, Kadama Muni, seeing her condition, being pleased with her, Kadama Muni actually expressed his gratitude to Devhuti. And then Devhuti said, if you are pleased with my service, then award me a boon. And that is that every chaste woman wants to have a child. Please benedict me with a child. And that's how the whole story begins. So then Devhuti says, well, I am not suitable in a situation to procreate a child because I have lost all my luster and everything. And that's those beautiful pastime begins where then Kadama Muni arranges heavenly damsels to appear and they take कहते हैं Devahuti in the bottom of Mother Saraswati or some kund, which will see that, and her luster, her beauty is brought back, and then Kadamuni was so pleased. Devati desired, there should be some place for us. And then Kadamuni goes on to manifest the aerial mansion, which is described as large and as huge as a city, filled with everything. And then Kadamuni and Devati on that aerial mansion or aerial city went all over the creation, like that has been described in this chapter. Finally, Kadamuni Devati begets a child, and that's how the chapter goes on in this discussion. Let's take a look at, beginning with first 3 verses about Devahuti's service to Kadamuni. Maitreya Vacha, so this is Vidur's Maitreya Samvad, so Maitreya Muni continues. Pitrabhyam prasthit he sadhavi patim ingita kovida nityam paryacharat pritya bhavani va bhavam prabham. After the departure of her parents, the chaste woman Devhuti, who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. Very, very beautiful purport, Prabhupada writes. A little bit pay attention to the first 3 purports here. So Prabhupada begins with the first example of Bhavani is very significant. Bhavani means the wife of Bhava, Lord Shiva, which means Parvati, the daughter of the king of Himalayas. She selected Lord Shiva, who appeared to be just like a beggar. In spite of her being princess, she undertook all kinds of tribulations to associate with Lord Shiva. Shiva Puran mentions, and Ramcharitmanas also mentions, the story of marriage between Shiva and Parvati, the daughter of the Himalayas, and we discussed that story on the top of the Oli mountain, and during our Himalaya trip, we talked about it. Who did not even have a house but was sitting underneath the trees. So here, Maitreya Muni compares Devhuti with Bhavani, because Bhavani came from the background of a princely order. Similarly, Devhuti, Kadamuni had no shelter, no home. Similarly, Lord Shiva had no place for himself, like this. She is designated in the middle of the purport as a Sadhavi, which means a chaste, faithful wife. Her rare example is the ideal of Vedic civilization. Every woman is expected to be as good and chaste as Devhuti or Bhavani. Now, when Prabhupada said every woman is expected, then it also, by default, means every man also has to be as good as Kartavamuni or Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is the ideal husband, not in the sense of riches or sense category, but because he's the greatest of all devotees. So he's the ideal husband, who is an ideal devotee, like that is mentioned. Prabhupada mentioned at the end of the purport, the wife is dependent on the husband. If the husband is a Vaishnava, then naturally she shares the devotional service of the husband because she renders him service. This reciprocation of service and love between husband and wife is the ideal of a householder's life. Text number 2, how to serve. Maitreya Muni says, very famous shloka. Vishambhena atma sauchena Gauravena damena cha Susrushaya sahurdena Vacha maduraya cha bho. This is a verse that needs attention, and each of the word need to pay attention, and we can just look at the word and probably study our own nature for it. How do we function? Okay, let's start from the top only. Vishrambhena, which means with intimacy. Atma Sauchena, with purity of mind. What is Atma Sauchena means? This is in relation of, serving your senior. This is Maitreya Muni describing how Devhuti served Kadamuni, and this is the same in relation to a disciple serving his or her guru. With purity of mind and body, which means there should not be ulterior motivations. There should not be an objective to fulfill some, desires through a service. There should not be a desire for one's own gain, fame, etc. With purity means, I have to serve for the pleasure of the person. Gauravena, with great respect. Now, what actions or behaviors could we a violation of respect. With great respect. What behaviors and conduct could be violation of this with great respect? Not following the order. Okay. What else? Somebody wishes to say online, you can just unmute and say, I hope our speaker will be working so I can hear. Ignoring. Okay. What does respect does? Respect allows you to become attentive. Respect allows you to know. If you are respectful towards somebody, if you have a high esteem and respect for somebody, would you be conscious and attentive? Yes or no? That's the thing. The first sign of disrespectfulness is inattentiveness. Now, where do we become inattentive? Generally in peer association. In peer association, there is a lot of ego battle. We are very eager to speak and share what we know rather than we hear. Yes or no? But in senior association, if the same mood appears, that way we want to speak, we want to tell the other person or tell a senior how advanced I am, how much I know, then the senior is no more a senior, is a peer. And that turns to a disrespect. So this with great respect has many things. First begins with attentive listening. Are you able to hear? Because you're able to hear, then it means a sign of respect. What else could be the violation of Gauravena? He said not doing service. That's the later on stage. First begins the attentive hearing only. First hear properly. What else could be the thing? Arguing back. Doubting the instruction. होगा भी? Possible है क्या? Probably इनको पता नहीं है. So that's the thing. Doubting the thing in itself. Clarifying is not wrong, but doubting is wrong. So that's the idea. Anything else? Can you do a thing if you have a doubt? So to say not to do service is a very later on thing. Prior to that, there are other things. Having a doubt. What else? Arguing about it. What else could be violation of Gauravena? Great respect. Even if it is not asked, giving your own ideas. How it can be done. Yes or no? I mean, this is violation. If it is asked, you share your opinion, even if it is not asked. Kadamani says, get kusha grass. Why always kusha grass? If Devati says, why don't you take green grass? Green grass is, look how long it is, how soft it is. So Kadamani, you should use green grass. No, 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 get kusha grass. You don't understand. Kusha grass is small and hard. Have you ever sat on kusha grass? It's hard. This green grass, which the cows, graze on, is very soft. You should sit on that because that is comfortable. Getting it like that. What else could be the violation? कभी नहीं सोचा यार. इसलिए नहीं सोचा क्योंकि तुम्हारे स्टूडेंट्स नहीं है. Every one of you get a student, you'll get the answer for this question. Because then you begin to see how it manifests. Because often we don't study our own conduct. We very easily study the conduct of others. So we'll get to know often. I give some answers. Okay, Gauravena with respect. Damena with control of the senses. Why control of the senses is required in the service? The control of senses is needed? Yes or no? Why is needed? सेवा कैसे होगी? Yeah, control of senses. Correct, control of senses. I can give you an example of personal servants of Maharaj, several Maharaj. They have a very austere life. The personal servant is often the last one to sleep and the first one to wake up. And he's running whole day, generally, running whole day. And particularly if your spiritual master or if your teacher is moving constantly, then because he's moving constantly, his clothes have to be washed and dried because next day needs to be there, his prasadam needs to be prepared, and you have something to do about yourself also. You wash your clothes, eat something. Sometimes there may be a train at 6 o'clock in the morning, so you might have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to cook, and it just so happened you went to sleep only at 11 o'clock. So because you have to cook, you're gonna get up at 4 o'clock. But other person doesn't have to cook, so he still So it's not that the person is having comfortable living. That's not. They have the nature of service is different because they have more dealing with public, which is generally more exhausting. Then you have more mental work is more exhausting than the physical work. Physical work is just if you take some rest, you'll be recovered. But mental exhaustion is very severe because they have a lot of mental exhaustion. Therefore, so it's not easy. So the main unless you have proper control sense, you cannot serve. Then susrushaya, the main susrushaya. Actually, sushraya means, if you see, is to hear. Sushru is Prabhupada read with service. Sauhardena, with love. Serve with love. If there is no affection, can any of this may happen? Will not be willing to sacrifice our comforts. Yes or no? So the very important quality in this whole thing is sauhardena, love and affection. And that does not happen easily. That does not happen. It takes a long, long time. And then, if not everything, one more thing. Vacha madhurya chabho. And you got to speak with sweetly. You got to speak sweet words. You can't be harsh. You can't be negative. Things like that. Is making some sense here? Oh, Vidura, she served with trust, purity, respect, sense control, menial duties, friendship, and sweet words. And the purport is something what we can all read the purport here. Here, two words are very significant. Devhuti served her husband in two ways, Vishrambhena and Gauravena. These are two important processes in serving the husband of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Vishrambhena means with intimacy, and Gauravena means with great reverence. The husband is a very intimate friend. Therefore, the wife must render service just like an intimate friend. At the same time, she must understand the husband is superior in a position. Thus, she must offer him all respect, which means in a student and teacher relationship, the teacher may share some confidential things. And the student will come across confidential correspondence. The teacher may ask the student to handle his mobile or maybe the email communication. That is intimacy. So what is that intimacy means? To maintain the confidentiality. Now, because you know everything about that person, all the communication, what he does, all the messages he gets, all the calls he gets, there is a great risk of familiarity. Therefore, it said, Vishrambhena, Atma Sauchetan, Gauravena. How has to be done? But simultaneously, there has to be a culture of great respect. That's the point here. Is that okay? A man's psychology and woman's psychology are different. As constituted by bodily frame, a man always wants to be superior to his wife, and a woman, as bodily constituted, is naturally inferior to husband. Thus, the natural instinct is that the husband wants to pose himself as superior to the wife, and this must be observed, even if there is some wrong on the part of the husband. Okay, I'll not get into that subject matter. Vishamena means with intimacy. It must not be, but it must not be familiarity with that breeds contempt. That's the point here. According to Vedic civilization, wife cannot call her husband by name. In the present civilization, the wife calls her husband by name, but in Hindu civilization, she does not. Thus, that way superiority is recognized. Swardena vacha madhurya means always desiring good for the husband and speaking to him with sweet words. A person becomes agitated. Why it is said, speak sweet words? Prabhupada writes very beautifully at the last line. A person becomes agitated by so many material contexts in the outside world. Therefore, in his home life, he must be treated by his wife with sweet words. Therefore, Chanakya Pandit said, in what condition you should accept sannyas? If your wife chastises you, and if your son does not listen to you, family life is a well for you. You should immediately leave to the forest. And here, that is what is why a person becomes agitated by so many material contexts. Can you imagine you go out, you do things, and then when you come back, your family members or your own students with whom you are spending most of the time, they only so ना घर का ना घाट का वो सोचेगा ना यार बाहर वाले भी रेस्पेक्ट नहीं देते घर वाले भी रेस्पेक्ट नहीं देते कोई नहीं सुनता मैं किसके लिए मेहनत कर रहा हूँ that's the point which is mentioned here. Text number 3 talks about how to please. We'll take it as maybe one of the last verse and then I'll summarize few verses after that. Visrachya kamam dambham cha dvaisham lobham maham madam apramatto tayatha nityam tijiyam sammatoshayat. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. Actually, Our service quality cannot improve unless we learn to deal with these things. Lust means desires. It could be, imagine the teacher is ready to leave, or the guru is ready to leave. He has finished his prasadam, but the subordinate or the servant is still busy, galloping extra gulab jamuns. He's too absorbed in eating. But is that what he's supposed to be doing? He should be standing on the door before the teacher comes. So unless you're done with this desires, that is lust, pride, envy, greed, really cannot be served properly. So purport, let's take a look at it. A few things in the purport. So Prabhupada is speaking in this regard in context of a husband and wife. Again, a very beautiful purport here. He has some of the qualities of a great husband's great wife. Kadamani is great by spiritual qualification. Such a husband is called Tejyamsam, most powerful. Although a wife may be equal to her husband in advancement of spiritual consciousness, she should not be vainly proud. Pride should not come. How does a pride manifest? I mean, how do you know you are proud? How does pride manifest in any relationship? No. I'm not saying how you become proud. How does pride manifest? We don't listen. Again, opposite. Because I know everything, how do I listen? And free advices. That's the idea. And third thing, not taking suggestions. Acting independently. Sometimes it happens that the wife comes from a very rich family, as did Devati, the daughter of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu. She could have been very proud of her parentage, but that is forbidden. She could have advised Kadam Muni, ye puja paat kuch nahi dene wala. We have to have a house. We have to have a car. Take a IT job. Something is better than nothing. But the point is, despite coming from that situation, being daughter of Kshatriya, knowing how to do administration, she didn't administered administration tips to the husband. So that's the point here. The wife should not be proud of her parental position. She must always be submissive to the husband and must give up all vanity. As soon as the wife becomes proud of her parentage, her pride creates a great misunderstanding between the husband and wife, and their family life is ruined. Now today, I don't think so. There could be challenges because of parentage, but there is another greater issue about becoming proud is of one's own professional life. If the lady is professionally more stable than the husband, the same situation can happen. At the end of the day, it matters who brings more money to the house, and then the pride would definitely happen. I'm also working in an IT company. You're also working in an IT company. I make 1 lakh per year, per month, and you make only 25,000 or 30,000. So who will make extra chapati now? Because you must be working less. That's the reason you're earning less. So therefore, who should make extra chapati? You should go into the kitchen. So that kind of conflict will definitely rise. That's the point Prabhupada is making. Devati was very careful about that, and therefore it is said here that she gave up pride immediately, completely. Devati was not unfaithful. The most sinful activity for a wife is to accept another husband or another lover. Chanakya Pandit has described 4 kinds of enemies at home. So we're talking 4 kinds. I gave 2 kinds. Now let's hear the 4 kinds. If the father is in debt, he is considered to be an enemy. Why? Our debt kaun chukayega? Bacha. The father is in debt, he is considered to be an enemy. If the mother selected another husband in the presence of her grown-up children, she is considered to be an enemy. If a wife does not live well with her husband but deals very roughly, she is an enemy. And if a son is a fool, he's also called an enemy. No, but right, son is a fool. What does it mean by son is a fool? Not that he's academically foolish. He could be academically very smart. But if his son is a fool means, just like Duryodhan, was a great diplomat, but was he a fool? Why was he a fool? Because he never heard the good advice, which means disobedient. Getting the definition of foolish? Son is a fool means when he becomes disobedient. In a family life, father, mother, wife, children are assets. But if the wife or mother accepts another husband, according to Vedic standards, she is considered enemy. A chaste and faithful woman must not practice like that. That is mentioned over here. And then text number 4 to 5 talks about what was the consequence of Devhuti's submissive behavior and her austerities. What happened? Text 4 and 5 mentions, let's take a look at the translation. The daughter of Manu was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than providence. Thus she expected great blessings for him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Every purport is beautiful. The wife is expected to be of the same category as the husband. This was discussed before also. When we were talking about in the previous chapter, there was a discussion we did last time, how to select a life partner. It should not only be on the basis of physiological quality, which means bodily features, and psychophysical nature. And that's the reason when you go to the astrologer, they check your guna. कितने गुणा मिले उस प्रकार का हमने डिस्कशन करा था. Prabhupada says the wife is expected to be the same nature as the husband. She must be prepared to follow the principles of the husband, and then there will be a happy life. If the husband is a devotee, a wife is a materialistic, there cannot be any peace at the home. The wife must see the tendencies and of the husband, must be prepared to follow him. And then Prabhupada gives an example of Gandhari. When she understood that her would-be husband was blind, she immediately began to practice blindness herself. These are the case studies to discuss and study. Why would Gandhari do like this? Dhritarashtra didn't ask, Bhishma Pitama didn't ask. And all her life she kept herself blind. Not with an idea that we need to enforce that today, with an idea to understand, at least my understanding and how I always look into the subject matter is not that it has to be implemented now, because everything cannot be implemented in today's situation, but to develop an understanding how our Vedic culture and system was scientific and properly organized. Every action that is defined there had a purpose, and that was fulfilling towards increasing your well-being quotient. Therefore, there was no concept of divorce. There was no concept of divorce. No. The first divorce that happened in India was published in the newspaper 1921. Is a print. You can go and search it onto. 1921 or 1931 was a year when the first divorce happened in India. It came in the newspaper. And the divorce was not of Gandhi's divorce or some Hollywood or Bollywood hero. No, the divorce was of some simple man. And was mentioned not because they were celebrity, but it was such an unheard thing in the town, like that. She decided that her husband was blind, so she must also act like a blind woman. Just to understand, why would somebody make this decision? Otherwise, she would be proud of her eyes and her husband would be seen as inferior. The word samanuvrata indicates that it is a duty of a wife to adopt the spacious circumstance in which the husband is situated. This is very important. Many times it is seen the mothers become devotees and the husband is not able to take it up, either not become a devotee or not take it up to the level of enthusiasm the mother has. And then begins the conflict era. Because mother comes with a lot of expectation, my husband should behave this. And her husband just cannot tolerate dictations. And they say, okay, if you dictate it, so whatever opportunity the man may have to practice bhakti, he becomes averse to it, thinking that if I get more involved, then she becomes more like a dictator. So here it is mentioned other way around. It is said, the word samanuvrata indicates it is duty of a wife to adopt the spacious circumstance in which the husband is situated. Of course, if the husband is a great as Kadamuni, then very good result accrues from following him. But even if the husband is not a great devotee like Kadama, it is the wife's duty to adapt herself according to his mentality. Which means, I mean, in the cases that we have dealt, I've often seen the man is also a very nice person. Very rare cases where husband could be really, anti-devotional practice or anti-ISKCON, anti-Vedic culture, or is a drunkard or things like that. It's a very extreme case. But in general, that is what we have seen and dealt with. Man is a good guy, very wonderful person, but he is not yet ready to accept bhakti. Now, you cannot give bhakti. Bhakti would not come from your end by speaking. How does bhakti start? That is described in Nectar of Devotion, 3rd chapter. So what we need to ensure is they get Krishna Prasadam and an opportunity for them to associate with advanced devotees. Your association in that relationship should be in relation to how the marriage life should be. If a wife becomes a guru, and the wife begins to instruct and teach then the husband somehow doesn't take it up. So we got to be careful. Prabhupada is kind of expressing that. It is a duty, wife's duty to adapt herself according to his mentality. This makes married life very happy. If we cooperate, the other person will also cooperate. It is also mentioned here that by following the strict vows of chaste woman, Princess Devhuti became very skinny, and therefore her husband became compassionate. He knew she was the daughter of a great king, and yet for serving him like an ordinary woman, she was reduced in health by such activities. He became compassionate and addressed her as follows. I'll read up to 8 so that section gets over. And Kadamuni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhuva, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. Prabhupada writes, what is selfless service? It is indicated here that one's body is very dear, yet Devhuti was so faithful to her husband that not only did she serve him with great devotion, service, and respect, but she did not even care for her own health. This is called selfless service. And then in the end, it is a duty of a faithful wife and chaste wife to help her husband in every aspect, especially when the husband is engaged in Krishna consciousness. Text number 7, Kadamuni being pleased with his wife, awards of blessings. Kadamuni continued, I have achieved the blessings of the Lord in discharging my own religious life of austerity, meditation, Krishna consciousness. Although you have not yet experienced these achievements, which are free from fear and lamentation, I shall offer them all to you because you are engaged in my service. Now, it's through the process of blessings. Now, just look at them. I'm giving you the transcendental vision to see how nice they are. That's the point. Prabhupada writes in the purport, for spiritual advancement, the easiest path is to take shelter of a bona fide guru and to serve him with heart and soul. That is the secret of success, as stated by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, Yasya Prasadat, Bhagavat Prasadat. Similarly, a sincere disciple, simply by serving a bona fide spiritual master, can achieve all the mercy of the Lord and the spiritual master simultaneously. And text number 8, he glorified the service of Devahuti. Kadamuni said, what is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace? All material achievements are subject to be annihilated simply by a movement of the eyebrows of Lord Vishnu. By your principles of devotion to your husband, you have achieved and can enjoy transcendental gifts, which are very rarely obtained by persons proud of aristocracy and material positions. And text number 9, we'll pause with that. Devhuti replies, Evam Brahmanam Abalakhila Yoga Maya Vidya Vichakshanam Aviksha Gatadhir Ase Samprashraya Pranaya Vihavalaya Giresha Vridavaloka Vilasat Dasita Nanaha. Abala means a woman, Akhila, Yogamaya. So it says, upon hearing the speaking of her husband, who excelled in knowledge of all kinds of transcendental science, innocent Devhuti was very satisfied. Her smiling face shining with a slightly bashful glance, she spoke in a choked voice because of her great humility and love. So why she couldn't speak? Prabhupada writes, because she was overwhelmed by emotions of love that faltered her voice. And then verse number 10 will start a very important discussion, which we'll see next time. The discussion about the married life, the responsibilities in Grihastha Ashrama, and then she requests for a child, and to fulfill her desire, Kadamuni creates an aerial mansion, sitting on which they travel all over the universe, spend many, many years as a living as a family or as husband and wife. And those are described up to verse number 43. Travels and enjoyment of Kadama and Devhuti in aerial mansion. And finally, a child is produced from the union of Kadama and Devhuti. And as soon as child is born, as promised by Kadama Muni before, as soon as the first child is born, I would leave to the forest, Kadama Muni at the end of the chapter. leaves Devahuti, or not leaves, he's about to leave. Devahuti pleads Kadamuni to stay back. And that discussion, the prayers of Devahuti to Kadamuni to stay back, will be in the 24th chapter. We'll take a look next time. So with that, we pause here, doing a quick recap about it. This series of chapters actually requires, it has a condition. The third canto, particularly this secondary creation, what we're talking about, this should only be understood, or this should only be heard by those who have read first two cantos. I've got some, because now here there are a lot of discussion would happen about material life, not in context of it is against spiritual life, but because as long as you have a body, you will have a material life, right? So those discussion would happen. Unless person is properly grounded in the subject matter of how Krishna is Supreme Personality Godhead and understood about primary and secondary creation, so it might look like a local conversation. Why are we discussing about somebody's sex life or somebody's family life, etc.? That will all come happen ahead. But they do have many, many important practical lessons in this discussion, particularly about the family life, about the relationship between disciple and a guru, a lot of application verses, just like we discussed in the first three verses of Devuti's service attitude towards Kadamuni, and how that verse is often quoted in relation to disciple service attitude towards a spiritual master. The psychology of women has been discussed, etc. Things were described like that. So that's the subject matter. We'll continue this discussion. So here Devuti has got married to Kadamuni. Devuti began to serve Kadamuni, and by trying to serve Kadamuni sincerely, she became very frail and weak. And seeing her condition, Kadamuni became compassionate, and he blessed her that whatever transcendental visions and opulences I have attained by the mercy of the Lord, I bestow you to you. Although you have not performed all that austerity that I had to perform for long, long years, I bestow to you because I'm so pleased by our devotional service. And then Devoti requests, if you're so pleased, also bless me with one opulence. Every mother or every wife or every lady wants to become a mother. Please give me the benediction of becoming a mother. And that discussion will continue ahead about their tours and travels as husband and wife. Hare Krishna. We pause here. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Anyone has any clarification? Mother Prachi's hand is up from the beginning of the session. So are you still there so we can take your question?
Prabhuji, for something you had asked, raise your hand if you think so. That time I had raised it. Sorry, Prabhuji.
Very faint voice.
No, I said you had asked something. How many of
Okay,
you
okay,
know
okay.
this or agree to this? That time I had raised.
All
Yes.
right. Mother
Thank you.
Yagya, go ahead.
Pradam Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Yes, Mother.
Prabhuji, like today, all the things that we read, like the example of Devahuti, if we have to deal with young girls, like, I mean, who are into relationship, like
Just 1 second. I'm having difficulty hearing you. I'll enable the speaker at my end. You disable speaker at your end. 1 second. Yeah, go ahead, Mother Yagya.
Yes, thank you, Prabhuji. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, am I audible, Prabhuji? Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the instructions that we read today about Mother Devahuti, if we have to deal with young girls who are into relationship before marriage, but they are practicing the sense of purity, both. So, are these instructions applicable to? I mean, such such kind of situations also, or is it only after marriage it becomes applicable?
Well, what is being described here is according to how Vedic society used to look like, and the customs were very different than what we have today. So, if in case we have to follow and apply some of these things, it better be done under the guidance of a mature family or a counselor, family counselor. who have lived their life, who understand the psychology of current generation. Okay, there is some sound issue, fine. Who understand the psychology of current generation and can guide them to be happy with what they have, and they also can practice Krishna consciousness. So what is applicable or not applicable has to be seen according to time, place, and circumstances. But the principle is very clear about man and woman relationship according to Vedic culture. Man and woman relationship is only acceptable post marriage, not before marriage, any kind of relationship. But in case somebody had been in relationship in the past, then generally they are advised to either proceed with that relationship, take it to the next level, get married, because now it's a very broken society. People are not getting married at the age of 40. Simultaneously, 12-year-old boy and girl are having girlfriend boyfriend. Isn't it an irony? You're grown up to be 40-year and 40-year-old man is looking for a wife, searching for a wife in matrimonial sites. He is not yet found a wife. He's searching for last 15 years. And 12-year-old boy in a school would have a girlfriend, or vice versa. It's a very bizarre society. So such discussions about what to apply, what not to apply, would have to be very much considered or seen into what is the family background of those who are talking about, what's their psychophysical nature, how much they can follow, what they can follow, because ultimately it's not about establishing Varnashrama Dharma, ultimately it's about establishing Krishna consciousness. So can we follow everything of this? As I said, they're subjective. Difficult to say that. Okay? All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Anything from the boys here? So it's a Grahastha section. So all of you are aiming for Brahmachari life, or because you're in Brahmachari life right now, have not thought about Grahastha life. So that's the reason probably. All right, all right. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai.